Mr. Rio?
Here.
Mrs. Bednar? Mr. Costello?
Here. Would you all please rise for the prayer and pledge allegiance tonight by Mayor Drew.
Thank you. I actually have an excerpt of a speech delivered by Theodore Roosevelt to the New York State Agricultural Association in 1903. He said, "The welfare of each of us is dependent fundamentally upon the welfare of all of us, and therefore in public life, that man is the best representative of each of us who seeks to do good to each by doing good to all. In other words, whose endeavor it is not to represent any special class and promote merely that class's selfish interests, but to represent all true and honest men of all sections and all classes, and to work for their interests by working for our common country."
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have 40 minutes of council meeting the 26th September, or is you got to move to approve? Move to second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Abstentions? Minutes are approved. Freedom of communications.
All correspondence has been taken care of or referred to the appropriate committee.
Thank you. Committee reports. Mr. Pavani.
I guess I'll cut it to. First of all, we did not have a public improvements committee meeting this week, but we have to answer questions. And we did have a planning committee meeting this evening at 6 o'clock, and has 3 business items up before us this evening. I'd be happy to answer
Questions from Mr. Pavani? Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did not hold a road safety committee meeting this week. We have one item in legislative form that will not be voted upon, and I will be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance just met. We have 5 items in legislative form. We have to take any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Reed? We had a committee of the whole meeting this evening also. We have one item out of that committee meeting, and is in legislative format. Will be discussed this evening. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Seeing none. Let's go to audience participation. Now comes the time where we ask for comments from the audience. Should you wish to make any comments, please raise your hand and be recognized by the president of council. You will be asked to provide your name and address for the benefit of our clerk, because your comments will become part of the permanent records for this council meeting. You will be allowed 3 minutes to make your comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address council at this time? Start with this row, first row.
Timchenko, 1970 Thorndale Avenue, Stow, Ohio. Good evening. At the Stow Planning Commission's meeting on May 22nd, 2012, Commission members Sprungle and Mahalik both requested a Plan B alternative to the proposed plans submitted by Mr. Marhofer. Mr. Sprungle noted that he was in agreement with the suggestion of closing Yukon Road, but was, quote, struggling with the rezoning of residential properties. He also wanted to see an additional plan on how Yukon Road would be dealt with on Plan B. Where is the Plan B? Are you going to require a Plan B? Requesting an answer.
We will not go through the Q&A discussion. The request has been made for a Plan B. I do not believe a Plan B has been provided to council at this time.
Are we to understand that council doesn't see a need or relevant significance to a Plan B? Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Abby Whaley, and I live at 1975 Thorndale Avenue. According to the site plans that have been presented by Mr. Marhofer, none of the new structure will be sitting or will sit on the properties being considered for rezoning. What then, as a matter of record, is the specific stated purpose of the properties being rezoned? Will the 3 properties being considered for rezoning be used for parking or vehicle storage? These are all just things we'd like you to consider. What significance, with regard to zoning, does such a designated use play on setbacks and placement of paved areas? Has council been advised with documentation from GM specifying minimum vehicle inventory requirements? If not, will research be conducted on such requirements prior to rezoning, or does council not deem this information necessary prior to rezoning the 3 residential properties in question? Please consider this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name is Eric Ronaldo. I'm a resident of 3433 Margaret Avenue. I have questions for consideration by council regarding the rezoning of 3 residential properties on Thorndale Avenue. Records and recent memory indicate that the area of Darrow, Kent, and Yukon Roads, a perimeter which encompasses a portion of Mr. Marhofer's current business location, is hampered by water runoff issues. In fact, the area is defined by the United States Federal Emergency Management Agency as a Zone A floodplain. Underpassing Road 91, immediately to the west of Mr. Marhofer's property, a culvert pipe handles water runoff from this floodplain and adjacent areas and feeds it into what the Ohio Department of Natural Resources defines as a tributary of the Cuyahoga River. With recent replacement of the culvert pipe that crosses under 91, the increased capacity of the drainage piping has instigated recent documented flooding issues downstream at neighboring Silver Lake Towers. Prior to the new culvert work, there had never before been a flooding problem at this location. Please consider, if the current drainage conditions are causing flooding, has council considered the ramifications when an additional 1.3 acres of rain and snow melt formerly absorbed by residential lawns and foliage are added to the current stormwater runoff via paved vehicle parking or storage services? What studies have been done regarding water runoff for this area? What if a water retention pond or basin is necessary? How does that affect Mr. Marhofer's request for space for storage of his vehicles? Will there then be a later request to assimilate additional residential properties? Without exploring these considerations, can it be understood then that council does not deem this information necessary prior to rezoning the 3 residential properties in question? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is William May. I live at 3425 Margaret Avenue. I'd like to speak tonight about some of the traffic flow we're going to have a problem with should this plan be approved. And I'd like to say about this plan is my wife and I are totally opposed to anything with the rezoning on Thorndale Avenue. Under these current plans, it is anticipated that Yukon Road will be closed. With the elimination of this roadway, have appropriate studies been conducted to determine how this will affect traffic, the flow of traffic along Route 91 and Thorndale Avenue intersection? With the closure of Yukon Road, through trafficking, people will attempt to avoid the subsequent additional congestion generated at Route 91 and Kent Road intersection when they begin shortcutting east on Thorndale Avenue through the elementary school parking lot, the Indian Trail parking lot. As the school gate is now open from 6 in the morning to 6 p.m. at night, Monday through Friday during the school year, this will compromise the safety of the children during the school day and late into the afternoon when it's dark, because it's dark before 6, and all the activities that happen during this time. I'd like to read an excerpt from the Stow Charter in the zoning section. and it's 1151.01. It is called Purpose, and it's talking about these Darrow Road Overlay District regulations are designed to achieve the following objectives. It's to continue to encourage the preservation of single-family residential areas. And another one here under F, it says to ensure safe and efficient traffic flow along Darrow Road, and to ensure continued vitality of abutting stable and developed neighborhoods that are already in place. So to finish up this section, should this new congestion require additional lanes to alleviate the congestion at the intersection of Route 91 and Thorndale Avenue? And how will this then impact the current plan for the current parking and storage? Will there be a later plan to assimilate additional residential properties if the planning does not go through? Should traffic studies be conducted to determine the need for lane addition or roadway modification with the closure of Yukon Road? And last but not least, without exploring these considerations, can it be understood that council does not deem this information necessary prior to rezoning the 3 residential properties in question? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sarah Moody. I live at 2854 Progress Park Drive. I'd like to state for the record that my husband and I are completely against the rezoning of these 3 residential properties. I come before council tonight to ask a few questions. I know it's not a Q&A, but I would definitely appreciate your feedback. At the Stow Planning Commission's meeting on September 10th, 2013, Mr. Marhofer stated that he offered Doug and Allison Burley and Mark and Mary Ryland $30,000 each to, quote, make it go away. Presumably, this was done under the guise that they would yield their position on this subject. These residents soundly rejected his offer and stated that it is not about the money. This is about the principle of going against our city's comprehensive plan, which indicates that we are to encourage business development while protecting the integrity of existing residential neighborhoods. So I ask you tonight, what is the purpose of his offer? Why was it not extended in some part to other residents whose home values and quality of life would be adversely affected by the proposed rezoning offer? Is this an acknowledgement that home value is expected to suffer, and this money was being offered as compensatory measure? If it's not, why did he do it? Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Brown. I live at 1961 Thorndale Avenue. At the Stow City Council meeting on September 26, 2013, Mr. Marhofer stated that he would be unable to relocate north or west due to the 1979 GM state franchise law restricting proximity to like GM dealers. The nearest dealership to the north and west is approximately 11 miles from Mr. Marhofer's current location. To the south, and a similar GM branded dealership exists 4.3 miles. Based on this relationship proximity, why would relocating to the west or the north not be a viable option? Again, without exploring these considerations, can it be understood the council does not deem this information necessary prior to rezoning 3 residential properties in question? Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is David Barnwell. I reside at 1970 Thorndale Avenue. Couple things.
council has not, it doesn't make sense to me how the council can't verify a lot of things, do a lot of studies before these properties are rezoned. This is our neighborhood. By rezoning these properties, that you're setting a precedent for future rezoning of residential neighborhoods. Can you, if this should be approved, is there some kind of guarantee that you won't allow more expansion into my neighborhood? I mean, right now, my driveway will sit adjacent to this Marhofer dealership. When we bought the house, we didn't see the dealership. Is this, if Marhofer needs to do, you know, because you didn't do any studies beforehand, we have to buy another, pay Bryant's, who knows how much it would cost to buy their home, and come up the street even farther? If the flooding is a problem, or you're gonna have to, you know, he needs more space. Well, I mean, can you give me a guarantee that, you know, there won't be any further expansion? Is there something they can put in there? Mr. President, is that something that's allowable?
I do not believe you can put any restrictions on the rezoning that has to be on the site plan. I would have to check with legal to give you a straight answer on that. So to answer your question, no, I can't give you a straight answer to you.
Okay. You know, we've been told before that, you know, these studies are usually done, and, you know, you rezone the properties before it's built. They'll do these traffic studies, these flood studies. In the meantime, we'll have 3 residential properties that are rezoned. They will never go back to residential properties. You know, cities do studies beforehand when they do major rezonings. The Walmart in Fair Lawn, for example, they did traffic studies before they rezoned. I mean, you know, Mr. Marhofer has stated himself, he can't go north, he can't go south, he can't go west, but he can go east. But there's no, you know, it doesn't make sense, or it's not an option for him. He's never said he was going to leave. It sounds to me he's not going to leave. Why can't he make the site work that he has? Nobody has questioned it. I mean, this is my neighborhood, our neighborhood. And you're gonna sit up here and do what's right for the city, and I understand that. By doing what's right, what you feel is right for the city, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing. I mean, there could be an option. He's never given us a plan B. Insist on a plan B before you even consider doing free zonings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Terry May. I live at 3425 Margaret Avenue. My husband spoke for me. I would just like to go on record saying I totally oppose rezoning of these 3 properties in my neighborhood. I have a quote here from Mayor Drew from the State of the City address on January 10, 2013. We have a ton of shovel-ready land for commercial and industrial development. We are unique in Summit County, Collier County, Medina County, and Stark County. There are very few communities in this region that have the access to transportation arteries coupled with shovel-ready green space that the city of Stow has. It is an asset which we cannot squander, and it is an asset which we need to leverage to our benefit. I ask you, if we have a ton of shovel-ready land for commercial development, why are we considering the destruction of 3 homes in one of the oldest neighborhoods in Stow? Why? And I would like to end this with a quote again from the comprehensive plan. I've stated it many times. Future development should occur in locations and in a manner that minimizes adverse impacts on existing residential areas, particularly avoiding incompatible land use relationships and minimizing an increase in traffic on local and as well as major residential streets. Please save our neighborhood. I raised my family there. I raised my 3 children there. I have 6 grandchildren. This is my home, and I feel like it's being attacked. Please save my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Mike Kosmak. I live at 3545 Emerson Road. Would it be all right if I pass these out?
You can give the clerk, she can pass them up for you. You can go ahead and catch up.
I want to, like everyone to be looking at, please. Thank you. What you're looking at is a scale drawing of the Marhofer property. I took the last plan from the architect and brought it into AutoCAD and used it as a template. What I did then was to draw the site. What I did was I kept the building the same size it was on the original architecture plan, kept it the same location, because one of the concerns was that he needs to stay in business while the building is being built, which makes a ton of sense. The other thing about this layout is it does not affect any utilities on Yukon. So the first thing I did was I took a look at the Pennzoil oil change, and I took that out and I wanted to see how many cars I could fit in there. And as you can see, that's in the lower left-hand portion of the drawing. You can fit a lot of vehicles in there. I think there's 2 problems with the Pennzoil oil change. One, from a space planning standpoint, you can't park there. 2, I think aesthetically, this is a state-of-the-art facility that he's going to be building. You won't be able to see his building from 91 and 59. And all the discussion I've heard up here about the comprehensive plan, that's what this is all about. So when this building's built and they run their ads that say, come see the new Marhofer Chevrolet, we're right behind the abandoned Pennzoil oil change building. It'll be easy to find. The other thing I did was he had 2 driveways on Kent Road in his original plan. One for him, excuse me, one for Stow Glass and State Farm. What I did was I consolidated those. The thing I like about that is, number 1, it gives me more room for cars. Number 2, the entrance and exit is at the same spot where it is on Yukon. And I feel as a driver, the farther an exit is from a major intersection, I think the safer it is. The other thing I did was I cut down the amount of green space on Kent Road and 91. And there still will be a sidewalk on Darrell Road as the architect was proposing a new sidewalk. But again, my goal here was to try to get as many cars on the slot as I could. So after doing all that, there's 281 cars in the slot without using any of the property in the town. I used 9 by 18 as a parking lot size. If they want to go 10 feet wide, you reduce that by 10%. I think with different sizes of vehicles, you might be able to have sections that are 10 feet wide and sections that are 9 feet wide. As I said before, and as residents have said, now is the time to solve these problems while it's on paper. I don't think this should be passed till issues like flooding and what his plan is are worked out. But there's a lot of ways to solve this problem while it's still on paper. I think he has every right to build his state-of-the-art facility, but I also think the residents of Thorndale have the right to keep the neighborhood a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to city officials reports.
Thank you. Just 2 quick items, Mr. Costello. The first is I wanted to remind members of council that you do have an invitation if you have not yet given your RSVP to First Energy for their open house next Thursday, the 17th at 4:30 at their new emergency management facility in Fairlawn. We have a number of members of staff of the administration, and as well as members of our police and fire department who will be attending that. So please do RSVP to Joe Vega if you are willing and able to attend. Secondly, I wanted to reiterate the invitation to the community at large for our open house in the police department next Tuesday, October 15th, from 6 o'clock to 7:30 across the parking lot at the safety building. We are planning lots of activities, including having the K-9 units there, the Metro SWAT units, the DARE car. We'll have representatives of our senior resource officer program, Stow Youth Services, Vacation Watch, other programs that the department runs so people can get information if they're not familiar. And perhaps most interestingly for some folks, we're going to have tours of the jail facilities, the shooting range, and dispatch. So we hope that people will come join us. Again, it's next Tuesday, October 15th, starting at 6 o'clock. We'll have some light refreshments, and it should be an interesting evening, and we hope to see lots of families there. And with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions from the mayor? Seeing none, Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. I have no report tonight, but I'll entertain any questions the council may have.
Any questions from Mr. Barron? Mr. Earl has nothing to add.
I also have no report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Our law director is on vacation, and the assistant law director is
Still on train.
still on maternity leave on the third child, so we have no legal report this evening, so I'll jump right back down to Mr. Wren.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Our paving program continues on for about the next week, depending on weather. Carville will be doing work on Inglewood, Kay, Friar, Independence, Rose, Mohican, Northview, Seneca, Wigley, and Wren Circle. Spano will be doing concrete work on Mockingbird, Alicia, and Arndale. After that, that should sum up the paving program outside of water cuts and punch list items. Secondly, secondly, our water department completed their their flushing for the fall season. Now that the flushing is complete, we have contracted with a firm out of Pittsburgh to perform our city center tank inspection. They'll be using a remote control robot, so residents should not see any disturbance related to that inspection. And lastly, on the good news front, the consortium that we're a member of bid out salt prices for this winter. Prices came in much lower than last year, $6.64 a ton less. According to our purchasing supervisor, this means a savings of about $28,000 every time we fill the dome, and projected out about $50,000 to $66,000 per year in savings. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Wren? Do you have anything from the engineering department?
No, sir, I did not.
And everybody signed up on the list, so that covers all the reports from the administration. Any new business come before council?
Mr. Chair, Mr. President, I'd like to move to excuse the absence of Councilman Bednar.
Second. Moved and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Her absence has been excused. Any old business come before council? I'm going to bring something up under old business. A number of people have asked me about political signs, why some are out, some are not out, and the location of political signs. Political signs must not be in the right of way, which predominantly means if there's a telephone pole, put your sign behind the telephone pole, line of sight, not in front of it. Some of us that have been in council in the past have said there's a gentleman's agreement that we will not put out signs until about 10 days prior to the election, and we will remove them immediately thereafter. There was an ordinance way back when that said you couldn't do it until 10 days prior, but that was struck down, so we've kept that as a gentleman's agreement that we would not put signs out until 10 days prior. I'm not accusing anybody else of putting signs out now early or anything like that, saying you can't. I'm just answering the question raised to me. So with that, I'll move on to disposition of ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Bourbon.
For us this evening, we have ordinance number 2013-129 that is going to be held this evening. Reason being, we will have a public hearing on 10/21 at 5:30.
Thank you. Next one is ordinance 132, and Mayor, with your concurrence, I will withdraw that ordinance.
I have no objection to that, Mr. Costello.
Moving second. All those in favor of withdrawing this piece of legislation, say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, say no. That item will be withdrawn. Mr. Razor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to hold ordinance 141. Reason being, we will send it back to committee for further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bonick, you're listed for the ordinance 145, but since we have to have a public hearing on that, which is November the 18th, and we have to have 3 readings, there's no sense in having a reading this evening, so we're going to hold that out. Your concurrence? Mr. Reel, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to introduce ordinance 150 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
An ordinance allocating original and supplemental overtime funds from the city of Stow budget for overtime expenditures for the fire department in 2013 and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules.
Move to second, suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. The rules are suspended, Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Move to second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Enmiser.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provonic?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Reel?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. Ordinance 150 is passed. Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce ordinance 151 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
An ordinance authorizing an expenditure for the maintenance of the city of Stow's telephone system at City Hall, Safety Center, Fire Station Number 2, and Fire Station Number 3 from the best practical source provider, Avaya Incorporated, for the calendar year 2014 without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Move to second, suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
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 Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Move to second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Enmiser.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provonic?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Reel?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. Ordinance 151 is passed. Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce ordinance 152 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into renewal contracts with Rickard Insurance Services Incorporated and Love Insurance Agency for general insurance coverage and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Move to second to suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Move and second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Enmiser.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provonic?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Reel?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. Ordinance 152 has been passed. Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce resolution 153 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
A resolution accepting and approving the amounts and rates as determined by the Summit County Budget Commission, authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county fiscal officer for 2014 and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules. Second.
Move and second to suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Enmiser.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provonic?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Reel?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. Ordinance, resolution 153 is passed. Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce ordinance 154 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
An ordinance allocating original and supplemental overtime funds from the city of Stow budget for overtime expenditures for the police department in 2013 and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Reel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Enmiser.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provonic?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Reel?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. Ordinance 154 has passed. Mr. Provonic.
I'd like to introduce ordinance number 155, and this is in a nice reading, nice title.
An ordinance approving the replat of 4 lots within the La Paz allotment lots 224 through 227 on Ritchie Road in the city of Stow.
I'd like to move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Move in second, suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Council.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Move in second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Ennis.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provani?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Rio?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. 155 has been adopted. Mr. Pavonic.
I'd like to introduce resolution number 156, and give Mrs. Ennis a read by its title.
A resolution granting a conditional zoning certificate and site plan approval to Angelo Patigi, applicant and business owner, and Jeffrey Sockloff, property owner, to permit the construction of a garden center at the Stow Town Center, located at 1604 Norton Road in the city of Stow, and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Move in second, suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Pavonic.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Move in second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Ennis.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provani?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Rio?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. 156 is passed. Mr. Pavonic.
I'd like to introduce resolution number 157, and give Mrs. Ennis a read by its title.
An ordinance appointing the assistant city engineer to the position of alternate review agent for minor subdivisions for the city of Stow.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Move in second, suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. Rules are suspended, Mr. Pavonic.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Move in second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Ennis.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provani?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Rio?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. 157 has passed. I'd like to introduce, Brian, you want to introduce 150, yeah? Okay. Ms. Ennis.
An ordinance directing the mayor to bring forward in legislative form the question of whether or not to award cost of living increases, commonly referred to as COLA, to all non-bargaining unit general payroll ordinance employees of the city of Stow that mirror any increases approved by Stow City Council in the ASPE contract for covered employees beginning in 2015.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Move in second to suspend the rules. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. The rules have been suspended, so I move for adoption.
Second.
Move in second to adopt. Further discussion? Ms. Ennis.
Mr. D'Antonio?
I have, I guess, one question on this since Mr. Allen's on it. We'll go there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Ennis.
Mr. D'Antonio?
Yes.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Yes.
Mr. Provani?
Yes.
Mr. Razor?
Yes.
Mr. Rio?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. 58 has been adopted. Mr. Earl, Mr. Chairman, do we have the bills? Yes, we do. Motion to approve the release of checks for current bills.
Second. So moved.
Sorry. Move in second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. For the bills. Thank you. Committee meetings. Mr. Razor.
Thank you, Mr. President. No need for a roads and safety committee meeting at this time. Right now. More.
Okay. Mr. Pavonic.
Yes, there is a need for a public improvements committee meeting, and I'd like to be happy to celebrate.
Planning committee, since there's no planning commission.
Is that right, Mr. Kurtz?
Okay.
Thank you.
We do have a public hearing scheduled for 21st.
5:30 p.m.
Would you want to have your public improvements to follow that?
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Breer, I know you're going to need a finance committee, so you're going to want that on the 24th.
Yeah, it's good on the 24th. It's close.
And Mayor, are you committee at all? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Those opposed say no. This meeting is adjourned.